When Paul McCartney takes the stage at the Times Union Center tomorrow night, there will no doubt be some young folks in the crowd experiencing his music for the first time. Then you're also likely to find once young people who have built a lifetime around the Fab Four's music and memories. Front and center, literally, is a woman from Albany who remembers the first time she saw McCartney play after she won a ticket in a local radio contest 48 years ago. Here's Liz Bishop with her story.
The year was 1966. U.S. troops were in Vietnam, Watts was burning, and Star Trek made its debut. But all that meant very little to Pat McCarthy of Albany. She was 13, and she wanted a ticket to ride.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
50,000-watt powerhouse WTRY radio had an in with the Beatles.
Back then, that's all you really had. You didn't have CDs, you didn't have the boom boxes.
And DJ Lee Park announced a contest to send busloads of lucky winners to see the Fab Four perform at Shea Stadium.
The Beatles are coming! And the lively one, WTRY, will be giving away dozens of free tickets to see them in person.
WTRY had an announcement that they were giving away free tickets to see the Beatles at Shea Stadium in 1966. And you had to be at the Westgate Shopping Center.
Pat couldn't get there fast enough. You see, she had it really bad for the Beatles.
I love them all, but there's always a special spot for Ringo.
So the 13-year-old showed up with a raffle ticket, and she won. And that meant boarding a bus for Queens.
Did you go alone?
I went with the other people on the buses.
And your parents let you go at 13?
Well, the funny thing is, I mean, can you imagine doing this now? This was the permission slip that my mother gave.
I hereby give permission for my daughter Pat to go on this Beatle trip.
That's it.
She sat with a friend of her sister who also won a ticket on her first trip anywhere alone.
But I felt like I knew the DJs. You heard them on the radio, you knew them. So you felt comfortable with them.
3 hours later, she was in her seat with tens of thousands of Beatles fans holding the biggest prize of her life.
I think these are nosebleed sections because compared to what they are now, that to me would be, we were pretty high up.
She doesn't remember everything about that magical night, but she doesn't have to. She took notes.
At 9:15, the Beatles came walking out, and everyone stood up and started screaming, as did I.
And it was all over quick as that.
They only were on for like a half hour.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That was it?
That's it.
That major event for half an hour?
Right. All that build-up of excitement for the whole day, the going back home and everything, and all we were there was a half hour.
And you really didn't hear anything, did you?
No.
Could you see them?
They were...
But that was enough.
That was enough.
And you were there.
I was there.
You would think the whole experience would have left her elated. Instead...
I remember being sick.
Physically?
Yes.
She came home with a banner, a book, and some confetti, and a lifelong passion. Pat's seen Paul and Ringo in concert many times and followed their exploits over the years.
I have the scrapbooks, which have tons and tons of newspaper articles. I've got magazines. I've got books.
And she'll be in the audience at the McCartney gig at the TU Center. The going price for a Shea Stadium ticket in 1966 was $5.75. In 2014, she's paying...
As long as my husband doesn't see this.
How much?
$1,500.
If somebody said to you, Pat, you're a grown woman, what's going on here? What would you say?
It was like, what, the Godfather, you know, the Thunderbolt or whatever they call it. I must have been hit with it, and it's never stopped.
Liz Bishop, CBS 6 News, Albany.